Good evening and welcome to another episode of The Fire Caves, a Star Trek podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Perry.
And I'm your host, David. Tonight we're talking about Star Trek Voyager, Season 1, Episode 12, Cathesix. Before we continue, you can find us on Facebook, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube as The Fire Caves, a Star Trek podcast.
That is correct. And as I say every single week, you should find us and follow us because we're great, we're awesome, we're a good time, and we love doing this. And hopefully you enjoy tuning in when you do. Whether you watch us live or you come back to us later on when, you're bored or can't sleep and nothing puts you out faster than two old dudes talking about a show that's 30 years older than
Old,
they are.
talk for yourself.
Okay, sorry. I crossed the line,
Someone
apparently.
did cross
Jeez.
a certain line with
Ah,
it
well,
lately.
okay. As I said a few years ago when we were doing our show, I was rapidly aging to the point where my opinion online would be deemed irrelevant. And I think I'm getting there, getting there.
uh,
Uh, but anyway, we have fun doing this show, obviously. So we're going to keep at it for a bit. And as David said, we are here to talk about the Voyager episode, and I believe it's pronounced Cathexis.
Oh,
I
I
have,
like the way I said it. I was proud of myself just now. I was like,
well,
Cathesis,
sorry to burst your bubble. That's wrong.
Cathesix.
That's wrong.
Well,
That's wrong.
I'm gonna say it's right. So who cares?
Well, see, and that's the problem right there that people have with the truth. You can't just alter it to fit your feelings. The truth is the truth.
Uh,
So, but we'll save that discussion for another time, and probably another podcast. Just saying.
sounds good. Sounds good.
Now, before we get into Cathexis, we are going to do what we always do, which is give ourselves a little chance to catch up, because in some cases, this is the only chance that we've had to talk to each other. And we did take a week off, so we're a little bit behind. But actually, in this instance, David and I have seen, well, a lot more of each other these last few days, this last week, than we have previously. So I'll let David explain as he gives his own
Oh, I had
recap.
to
So take it
explain, huh?
away. Take it away. Sure, you do it. I've already been on this subject enough on the broadcast. It's now
True
your
enough.
turn. It's your turn to contribute.
Well, I realized that the news store I was working at wasn't terribly far away from where you work out, so I figured, hey, after work, I'll join you in working out. So we've done that for the past, gosh, it's technically been about 2 weeks now.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's really been about a week and a half. We
Yeah,
started in the middle of a week and we did like 2 days, and then we
yeah,
had our first full week
hmm
last week. So now
yeah.
we are getting ready. Tomorrow will be week two, the beginning of week two. So
Yep. So
So basically, what
there's
happened
that.
here is David recognized that he was getting older and didn't want to be the older, pudgy guy, which I understand. We all go through it. And like he said, my gym isn't too far away from where he's currently working. So why not take that opportunity to,
Right.
shape up a
Yep.
little bit, right?
hmm
So that's what we're doing now. Again, he's only gone through the first week. Been taking it easy on him, but I'm a person who believes in the progressive overload type of workout. So every week we got to do a little bit more, got to push a little bit harder, got to build on the success, the foundation that we're working on here. So come back and see us in about a month or so and see if David's still my friend, because it's entirely possible he won't be
uh,
by that
God,
time.
thanks for saying all that. Sheesh.
I like to give
Uh,
people a fair chance to back out before, that happens.
yeah.
So yeah,
Well,
David has been. So what else besides working out with me? What else?
so I started reading the Iliad in preparation for the Odyssey movie coming out. The Odyssey comes out on July 17th. So the Iliad has 24 books, and the Odyssey has 24 books, which are usually just chapters. And so I've timed it so that if I read a book with my normal reading schedule, I'll have finished both the Iliad and the Odyssey in time for the new movie. Um, I am not doing so. I normally try and read 50 pages a day of something. So the Iliad, the chapters, the books are anywhere between like 17 pages to 30 pages. So the remaining difference between that and 50 pages of reading, I do book 5 of the Pendragon cycle. This book is called Grail. It's about the about Arthur and his knights and their searching for the Grail. Not quite searching for the Grail in the classic sense. It's definitely a different take on the King Arthur story. But the Grail is the main feature of book 5. I'm about halfway through. In fact, if I had gone to my normal reading schedule and I was not reading the Iliad, I would have finished this book today. But instead, I'm only halfway through it in order to make room for reading the Iliad. So fun stuff. I did not know that the Iliad was the story is limited to like only about a week of time in the war. It's not the tale of the entire war with
Hmm.
a whole decade-long siege. It's
Hmm.
only about a certain frame of time.
Yeah.
Uh, it's very interesting. I'm enjoying it. I'm reading the
The Iliad and the Odyssey were were two of my favorite stories that I ever got to cover in college in English literature.
yeah
And I was fortunate enough to have a teacher that not just presented the stories, but also did the whole like history of the war and everything, and
mm,
definitely and talked about that, like broke things down. It was like she was really stressing that this was a very long and involved war. This was
yeah
like basically their equivalent of a world war. Like
yeah
everyone was a part of this. Every major king, every major city
yep
state, every major everything. They were all involved in this war. It was
yeah
that big of a deal.
right
And it took a long time to get the logistics worked out of who was going where, who was doing what, who's in charge of what. Like there's
right
a whole thing for it. And I really, to this day, I give credit to my teacher for that, because I, we all hear about the stories a little bit, but I'd never had anybody like break it down to me like that. And
right
then when you get to the actual story and the fight and who does what, and it's like, yeah, that part is all like this much.
yeah
It's real short.
exactly. It
Yeah,
really
but
is.
and then
I
the
would have
Odyssey is the same way. The Odyssey, it's like, oh, it sounds like there are these moments, of course, but it's like that was like 20 years, So yeah. But go
the
ahead.
entire Odyssey. Yeah.
Yeah, the entire Odyssey spans 20 years, and it's crazy. Not to spoil anything, because again, the story is thousands of years old. All right, so
Yeah.
shut up.
Right.
But like my favorite part, because as you all should know by now, I love bitterness. Um, is when he basically has to like start over again, and it adds another 10 years to his journey. And so it's like, oh man, you were this close,
Yeah.
and then you had to screw it up, and now
Yeah.
you're another 10 years added to your sentence, basically.
Ugh.
Yeah, that is a painful moment in literature, and I love
So
it.
I have not read the Iliad or the Odyssey ever before, never studied it.
Oh,
So I am
sorry, spoilers.
yeah, no, I know that stuff like that happens. I just don't know all the details. Which is why I'm reading it, of course. But of course with the movie coming out, huge Christopher Nolan fan,
Yeah.
super hyped for it. Hope it's great. So yeah, the other thing I've been reading, which I think I've mentioned, is Machiavelli's The Discourses on Livy. So Machiavelli is most well known for writing The Prince, for which he gets a lot of flack because he
Mhm.
basically is telling tyrants like how to run their countries. But the Discourses, which is like 4 times as long, is much more nuanced. It's basically his. I may have mentioned this before, so if I've said it on the podcast, I'm repeating myself. Forgive me. But his whole purpose in writing what he does is he's more interested in political stability than he is in how you go about it. He's very much the ends justify the means, or at the very least that certain people are going to rule certain ways. So you better tell them how to best do their job, even if they're tyrants, than to only prescribe one form of government. So he's all for republics. That's the one he's advocating for. But he's not like, oh, I'll never talk about how a tyrant will do his job, because if there are tyrants, they're going to want to learn how to do their job well. So you might as well say like, okay, do this and do that. But he's definitely willing to talk about brutal things. Like one of the things I was reading today was about uh, if you're if you want to make change in a society, you need to do so gradually, and you need to keep the forms of things, like the names and titles of things, even if you're changing how they operate. But if you're a tyrant and you take over a whole new like area, you don't do that. You just literally raze everything to the ground. You destroy all the institutions, you destroy the city, you move the people around and reorganize society so that they are discombobulated and they have no way of organizing. And it's just brutal. And he's like, I know that this is brutal and most people won't want to do it. And in fact, that most people will only half-heartedly do the brutality, like because they won't be able to fully commit to being brutal. But it's better to either not do it at all or be brutal and commit the whole
All
way.
or nothing. Yeah,
Yeah,
commit to it. Be
ex-
terrible all the way.
right.
Don't, what's the saying? Don't half-ass multiple things, whole-ass one thing, basically.
Yes, and he's
So
basically
either way,
like most people are going to only be able of half-assing it, but the half-assing it is being a cruel tyrant.
yeah. So it's
It's
like
very
it's a
interesting.
weird reverse motivation to be a good person.
Right.
Because if you're gonna be bad all the way. Don't suck.
Yes.
So yeah, that's a weird way to put things. Don't share that because we've got enough people half-assing being evil as it is.
Well,
Because
it's so funny you say all that because I like to read about World War II history, and I'm watching a Netflix thing right now. It's called Turning Point, the atomic bomb and the Cold War. And if you study like Soviet history, Stalin did that. Stalin like took what I just talked about, was like, all right, you know,
all
catch
the
me
way,
on the, hold
whole
my
ass.
beer.
Yeah, he
Um,
whole assed it. He whole
it's
assed it.
he
Yes.
he did it, and so did kind of Mao Zedong. So um, it's almost like what I'm getting at is that I'm really curious to see. I'd be very curious to know if people were like holding on to Machiavelli in their back rooms, being like, "All right, what do you say about this?" Because again, he's not.
Um,
He's willing to talk to anybody. Is basically Machiavelli's problem. He advocates for republics, but he's like, "Hey, you're a tyrant. Well, I'm still going to give you some advice if you want it." It's like, maybe don't.
yeah.
Very curious character, and it's a very interesting book. I mean, I really like it. In terms of just the chapters are like a page or two long, so they're very short, very pithy, um, and a lot of fun to read. But yeah, so basically, I have three things going on right now. I got a fiction book, I got an ancient Greek epic, and then I got a ancient philosopher who's telling tyrants how to run the world on the back end. So a lot going on. Work's been interesting. This is the Memorial Day season. I would really have expected and hoped for more people coming in right now, but that's not the case, which is weird. I mean, I had business today, but it wasn't like I was $4,000 short of the expected budget for the day. So, you know, $7,000 is a nice day. And when you only make three, I mean, three's not bad. Don't get me wrong, but
But it's
it's
not
not
7.
seven. It's only not even halfway to seven. So
Yeah.
anyway, that's been. I'm trying to think if there's anything else, but yeah, that's really it for me.
Okay.
But before we got
You
on, you had a lot to talk about. You had
Yes,
a lot you were
I
sharing with
will
me.
try to run through this really quick. So, obviously, we read a lot. We've tried to go through different series, and as you all should know by now, we made our way through the Expanse series. And even though the authors that we love for the Expanse series have started a new book series, we wanted to take a little bit of a break and read some other things before diving back into the worlds of James S. A. Corey. The book that I chose for that kind of palate cleanser was Children of Blood and Bone. Unfortunately, it's not my cup of tea. Um, I've been trying to read it, get into it, get to a point where I felt like, okay, this is kind of tracking with me a bit, but unfortunately, it's just not. Um, it's just not my kind of book. I'm
Yeah,
not going to knock it. I know that it seems like it's got a lot of critical acclaim. I know they're turning it into a movie or a show, something like that. I'm not sure, but I know there is some kind of televised production of it slated to come out rather soon. So if that is your book, if you've enjoyed that series at all, more power to you. Unfortunately, it's just not for me. And so I don't know if I will actually finish that book.
Yeah.
It may be one of those things that I come back to later down the road and um, knock it out just because. But that being said, I don't think I'll even finish that series. So, and I think there's 3 books in that series. So
Right.
there's that. I'm not going to say that it's a bad book or anything like that. I'm not even going to go into the reasons why I feel like it's just not for me right now. I'm just going to say it's not for me.
Yeah.
In the meantime, I have been reading some other things. This is a book that I also talked about maybe 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. It's called The Edge of Space Time. And this was one that was recommended to me through another Trek podcaster. And I think this book is delightful. It's everything that you would want from a person who actually has the legitimate know, the knowledge of the science that they talk about or that they utilize in a lot of sci-fi, in particular Star Trek, as kind of their jumping off point. So, like a lot of Star Trek science is grounded in real deal science. The author here, Chandra Prescott Weinstein, is um, a legitimate bona fide scientist, and she is, I believe she's an astrophysicist.
Mhm.
It mentioned it kind of early on, and I'm sad to say that I forgot. But anyway, she goes through all of these kind of major uh, science concepts, and she explains them, explains like what we're doing with them currently, projections for how they're going to be in the future, and she relates all that stuff to in a very easy, accessible way. So if you're a person who has like just a kind of a even whether you have a passing curiosity about physics, particle physics, astrophysics, cosmology, anything along those lines, this is a great book to kind of like help you get your mind wrapped around some of those more heady concepts. And I find it great. There are a lot of different Trek references in this book as well. So again, if you're a Trek fan, I think that'll also help you to access this book. So definitely check this one out if again that strikes your fancy at all. Um, Another thing that I've been reading is the collected works of James Baldwin. I've got
Mhm.
this kind of old school um,
Oh yeah,
book here. Love these when they
I
come out
have.
this way.
Yes, I have.
Um,
I have something in the same cover and look. Yeah,
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 I know that they make a big deal about art and dust covers and all that kind of stuff, but there's just something about the appeal the plain with the gold
yes.
here
Mhm.
has that
Yep,
is unmatched in
yep.
anything else.
That's the Everyman's Library.
I believe so.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yep.
yes, it is. Yes,
I
it is.
recognize that. Yep.
Yes, it is. And yeah, there. This is great. You should get books that are in this style. They're great. Anyway, James Baldwin was a Black American writer. Came up, wrote a lot during the 50s and 60s. He documents a lot of the things that he experienced through living in the segregated South, through the civil rights, through the desegregated South, and on into kind of the mainstream of the 70s and in England and in France. And it's not only his own experiences, but he also writes a lot of short stories as well, where he talks about the cultural vibe of the time,
Mhm.
and offers a lot of commentary through characters that he creates. It's a really it's a great, very complex characters, um, culturally nuanced stories from that particular time period. It's something that I really enjoy because like the writing back then was always it's so specific. The language that they use, the way that they frame the world that they're building for you in their short stories, things like that it's always just it's so immersive. And considering the subject matter and also considering where we are right now in the United States, I feel like it's something everyone should, at least a couple of the stories you should read through and get his voice. Because again, he's talking about things in the 60s, in the 70s that we're dealing with right now. You
Right.
know, Granted, some of the stories, there are little bits of exaggeration because he is projecting. He's talking about, how it could be. in the future in some aspects, or
Right.
what he believes will be the outgrowth of what he's experiencing at that time, where he thinks it may go after that. But a lot of things he talks about are still very relevant, very topical, and it's kind of telling, when this thing that was written, in the mid 50s, or I'm sorry, mid 60s, early 70s, and so forth, and we're still kind of, battling that out.
Right.
So if you're a person who just is again, you can appreciate history, you can appreciate that kind of perspective, pick these up.
Gotcha.
You won't regret it, for sure.
Gotcha.
um in fact,
Yeah.
I would even go so far as to say I'd be willing to talk about some of these stories, should anybody ever be interested in doing that, because
Yeah.
it's just great. It's yeah, I've enjoyed these, so pick these up.
Gotcha.
But we're not here to talk about all that.
Well, I just want to quickly say that
Yeah.
the Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire series that I have been reading, taking a break for it for the Machiavelli stuff. That's the same Everyman's Library edition that I've been reading those in. And the reason I bring it up in part is because it reminded me to say that one of the reasons I've been liking this book by Machiavelli, it's called The Discourses on Livy. Livy was a historian of ancient Rome before it became the Roman Empire and had the Caesars and it was a republic. Uh, that's what Machiavelli is talking about back when it was noble and virtuous. And it's really interesting to be reading that because the fall and decline of the Roman Empire starts with basically the Caesars, and that brings about corruption and you know it causes problems. And of course, it's the
Mhm.
slow decline of the Roman Empire that he's talking about. But when you actually appreciate all of the wonderful like good things that Rome had going for it, which made it powerful, which made it successful, which made it the world power it became originally, and then you understand the fall afterward, makes more sense. So I actually kind of wish I had started with what I'm reading now as opposed to reading the fall and decline of the Roman Empire, because it's like I got my history backward.
uh,
Um, and it's just been fun to read it, and it's going to make my going back to reading the fall and decline of the Roman Empire more fun and more enjoyable because I'll actually understand the full history as opposed to starting in the middle of the story and being like, "This is kind of weird. Like I don't know where I am," in the middle of the story.
so are
So
you making a more nuanced argument for why prequels suck? Sounds like that's what you're doing.
no,
Why
no, it's
prequels and why flashbacks are terrible
oh
ideas.
yes. Oh, that's
Yeah,
well, in this only in the sense of like you should. I think as I talked with you when we were talking about writing is like start the story where it
yeah.
begins.
Start in the beginning.
Yeah,
Cut that
don't
out. Yeah,
yeah, don't jump to the middle point and then
that
do a bunch of
that trope.
flashbacks.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that trope of the screen stopping and the voice. You're probably wondering how I got here. No,
yeah,
I wouldn't be wondering if you didn't just clue me in that there was more to go. Yeah, stop that.
right, exactly. But yeah, and then finally, I saw a comment asking if I liked Tenet. Yes, I do like Tenet. I love Tenet. I think Tenet's a great Christopher Nolan film. It's definitely one of his classic, mind bendy stories. I know that there's some people who don't get behind it. It's one of his it's probably his most complicated film, and it's also the most plot driven as opposed to the most character driven. It is not a character driven movie. In fact, the main character is just called the protagonist. He doesn't even have a name, but that's actually Christopher Nolan pointing to the fact that he's not trying to tell a story about people and their lives. He's telling a story where he takes this funny, interesting idea of what if you could reverse entropy and what would that look like? And the plot is immaculate. There's really only one moment in the entire film where you could say he got his entropy wrong, but that's a questionable scene where you don't even know everything going on. And what's really fun with the movie is to rewatch it when you know what's going on, rewatch it, follow everything, and then if you go on YouTube, which why am I have to go to YouTube to study? That's not what you're doing. If you go to YouTube, you can find people who have marked out everything that's happening and you can get a more clear idea of what's happening, but it makes it fun to like understand everything. Like why is this person here and why are they there and what are they doing and how do they interact back and forth through time? And it's a lot of fun. The plotting of the movie is immaculate. even though it's definitely kind of harder to keep up with, it's not a fun movie. You just sit back and like pop a beer or something. You have to pay attention to it. But I love it because I love Christopher Nolan stuff. I'm willing to sit through his kind of heady stuff and enjoy it. So yeah, I like Tenet quite a bit. But anyway, we have something else
Yes,
to talk about.
we
We
do.
should probably get onto it by now.
Yeah. And for that reason, I will go ahead and do the recap because we'll
do it.
just
Yeah, go ahead.
breeze through this here. So again, Cathexis is the episode, and this is kind of a weird one. It's the Chakotay and his not quite Native American authenticity stuff.
Mm.
Okay. So basically, the episode starts with Janeway going off to the holodeck to participate in her. She calls it an ancient Earth holo novel, which is set in like Victorian England, and she's like a governess for some holographic children who are annoying from the get go. There, she's doing that whole bit. She gets called to the bridge because there's a shuttle that's coming back. The shuttle had Chakotay and Tuvok on it. No one's answering. They're trying to hail the shuttle. No one's answering. Scan the shuttle. Life forms faint. Shuttle gets within range. Beam everybody to sick bay. Tuvok is barely conscious, and Chakotay is completely comatose. He's brain dead. No brain activity whatsoever. Once Tuvok recovers, he's like, "Hey, we were on our way to meet with these people. We were attacked. We were driven into this nebula, or no, we went into this nebula where we were ambushed, and they hit us with some kind of weird energy thing. Chakotay went down because he's weak, and I've set us on autopilot to come back to you guys, and that's it." So Janeway's like, "Well, of course we have to go and investigate this and figure out why people attacked you, and we got to figure out what energy weapon was used because hopefully we can, bring Chakotay back to life." So they start, going back towards the nebula. When all of a sudden they lose contact with the nebula. They're like, "What the heck's going on? We've changed course." "What do you mean we've changed course?" No one seems to know who did it, but they track it down, and it seems like Tom Paris changed the helm setting.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's like, "I didn't do it." And you're like, "Well, maybe your console's malfunctioning. Easy mistake. Run a diagnostic. We'll get back on course. Figure it out." But then, later on, it happens again. They're like, "What the hell?" And so they go looking, and they're like, "Yeah, it came from wherever it is, the main navigation room that we have on the
Yeah,
ship." And
Torres apparently did it. Yeah.
so they call down there and they're like, "Hey, was anybody down there?" And she was like, "Well, I was there a little bit ago, but I happened to see Tom Paris leaving
Oh, right.
just
Right.
a few
Sorry.
minutes
Yes.
ago, and here comes Tom back to the bridge, and he's like, "Well, I mean, I was down there, but I didn't do anything." And I'm like, "Yeah, something's fishy. Go to sick bay, get checked out." So he does, and they're like, "Oh, there's a weird memory engram in here for some reason. I don't know. It's like an alien thing, perhaps. We're not sure." Um, so they're kind of on alert, but still dead set on going back to this nebula. Meanwhile, Chakotay is still brain dead, comatose in sick bay. Now they're decorating sick bay with his tribal artifacts, and B'Elanna is there working the medicine wheel, which has
Mhm.
all these different pictograms on it. And apparently, after you wave it over his head and you say a special prayer, you're then to place the rock, which apparently is magnetic. They don't explain how these rocks are able to stick to this board, but they do
Yeah.
somehow.
Hmm.
And the doctor kind of makes fun of her because he's like, "Yeah, you put that rock in the wrong place, and you're going to divert his soul to these Amazon women if you leave it that way, and he's never going to want
Hey.
to come home."
Hey.
Yeah,
Hey.
you know. So she gets all incensed because like, "How do you know?" And he tells her, "I'm a doctor. I know everything."
Yeah.
They fix it, and then they keep going, and now it's once again they're back and they're close to the nebula. And just before they enter the nebula, suddenly the uh, engine shuts off, and now they're looking, and it seems like this happens. It's Torres who has done this, and she's unaware. She gets scanned again, weird memory engram in her brain. So now they're like definitely on alert. There seems to be some kind of alien presence which can take control of them at any particular moment and make them do stuff. And it seems to be very intent on stopping them from getting to the nebula where these aliens are waiting, and stopping them from saving Chakotay. This just makes Janeway even more determined to do it. And now they're trying to figure out why this alien is doing whatever it's doing on the ship. Um, Kess becomes involved because she can sense that something was in the room with her at some point. She agrees to work with Tuvok to try to figure out what's going on, but then they're both attacked in one of the turbolifts, where they're discovered later on collapsed. They go back to sick bay. Kess is completely rendered inoperable from whatever her attack was. Tuvok once again narrowly escaped. They then pull up the path that the ship was flying, and they're able to get kind of deeper into the nebula. And that's when Tom was like, "Hey, we did this scan, and you know, Kess's injuries don't match the way that everyone else's injuries were. It looks like she was attacked by, like, I don't know, a person, like and it matches up with the Vulcan nerve pinch or whatever he says. So now they're really suspicious of Tuvok, and Janeway's like, it seems like this thing keeps attacking you. You've been attacked multiple times. Why does it keep coming after you? And he's like, I don't know. I'm third in command. Maybe it sees me as a threat. And she's like, you've been no more of a threat than anyone else has been, yet it keeps coming back to you. What's going on? Now, it's important to note that they had also decided to divvy up Janeway's powers. Probably the smartest thing they've ever done on
Yeah.
Voyager was take some power away from Janeway. So, Lord. But anyway, they say, look, in the event that I could potentially become compromised, since Chakotay's already out, we're going to need some checks and balances here. So we're going to give some of my control over to the doctor. Someone, of course, sabotages the doctor. So now all control reverts back to Janeway, making her a prime takeover target.
Mm.
She does get taken over, but she does like all the other aliens have done, and they attack Tuvok, knocks him down. He gets up and does something I've never seen them do before or
Yes.
since with the phaser. He knocks everyone out on the bridge. He does some trickery with the buttons, and the standard on your hip phaser we've seen a bajillion times. He whips it out, and bam, he covers the whole bridge.
Yep.
And knocks him out.
Every single, like 20 people hits them all at
They've
once.
never done that before. They've never done it since. What is this crazy setting on this phaser? I have got to know. So he knocks everybody out. Once everybody comes to, they're deeper into the nebula, and now Tuvok is like, yeah, it's me. Surprise, surprise, I'm not really Tuvok. I'm inhabited by an energy being that lives deep in this nebula. I've been trying to get you guys back there because all of my people are in the nebula, and you guys are just, a feast for us. We're going to take all of your mental energy and live like kings. So they're like, wait a second. Oh, and so when once there's the reveal of Tuvok, someone, B'Elanna, dumps the warp core, stopping the ship cold. So like, wait a second, if the alien's up here on the bridge in Tuvok, who the hell just ejected the core? And B'Elanna can't do that. She doesn't have the proper authorization to do so. And they check, and the computer tells them it was Commander Chakotay's code. So now Janeway puts it together. There's actually two aliens. One is a legit alien, and the other one is Chakotay. His disembodied spirit is somehow jumping from person to person, inhabiting them, which reminds me of a very terrible and terrifying 80s movie. We'll get into that. And he's inhabiting them and making them do things.
Right. Trying to stop Tuvok.
Trying to stop them from going into the nebula, trying to stop Tuvok. Right. They figure out a way to basically knock the alien out of Tuvok. It's a magneton flash scan, which renders him, not a threat anymore. Forces the alien out of his body. They're able to reroute power, turn the ship around, and get out of the nebula before these other aliens are able to pass through the ship. Now that they're aware of the aliens and their energy issues, they are able to safely reintegrate Chakotay's energy to his body, scoop up the warp core, and head on their way. They don't drop any kind of warning buoys. They don't put up any posted signs, nothing around this nebula. So the next group of aliens happening by can get sucked up as well. No good deeds for the Voyager crew in this episode whatsoever.
You know what? I just want to quickly say, while we talk about that real quickly, I know that they have the universal translator here in Star Trek, so the idea that they need to communicate via symbols, like writing, is not necessary. But I don't know if you've ever heard about the history of making radioactive nuclear waste, we have a certain symbols for that kind of thing. They intentionally tried to design that symbol such that any person in any language could understand that they're trying to communicate danger. It's not supposed to be an attractive symbol where it looks appealing, like, oh, there's treasure. That's not the idea. It's supposed to be a warning that this is like, don't mess with this. This is dangerous.
Mhm.
So I love that idea you just brought up of like they don't warn anybody, but at the same time, it's like, well, how would they? Like, do they have like a symbol, a universal symbol of like, hey, this is a bad place. Don't
So
come this way.
it's funny that you bring that up because it is true. That's why they designed the writing, the iconography to look a certain way so that again, any people ever should know don't mess with whatever that is.
Right.
However, there's actually a Star Trek episode that deals with precisely that. And
Oh,
it's a TNG episode where Data wanders into one of these alien towns that's like basically at the medieval level of development,
right.
and he's carrying a case, and they obviously
Yeah, I
can't read the
remember
writing
that.
on it. And even though it, like, to us, we see it, it clearly says radioactive on the side, they're like, what do you think? Oh, that might be his name. And then they proceed to take the metal pieces out and play with them, and they turn them into jewelry, which makes everybody sick. And
Yeah,
everybody's like blaming him for being sick, and it's like, well, you're almost right, he is the reason that you're sick because he brought the stuff with him.
right,
But it was in a container that would have kept you safe had you not opened it,
right.
but you didn't understand the iconography.
I remember
So
that episode now. Maybe that's where
yeah,
I thought to, or like I found. I'm trying to remember where I learned about the whole nuclear signage
yeah,
bit. But anyway, yeah,
yeah.
that's
There's
a
a whole
great
episode,
point. The episode did
whole
deal
episode
with
about.
that very question.
Yep, and yeah, but once again, they just like, okay, here's a huge dark matter nebula that's full of alien creatures that are trying to inhabit our bodies and displace our souls. We're just gonna turn around and dip out, and good luck, everybody else.
What do we owe the
We're
Gamma
done.
Quadrant,
Yeah,
right?
the Delta
Delta, excuse me,
quadrant.
Delta Quadrant.
Yes, we don't know you people. We're not staying for very long. So whatever. That is essentially the episode. Of course, you can always go to Paramount Plus and watch it yourself if you have anything else that you want to gain from it. We're going to talk about it a little bit more. This is also one of those problematic Chakotay is an Indian episodes. Um, this is a where we the medicine wheel is problematic, the way that which it's used, the inclusion of the Andalusian mountain women and all that stuff. A lot of these things were misappropriated because we're told that Chakotay is a descendant of North American Indians, and yet the iconography and things that we see here are more South and Central America.
Mm,
And no explanation is given. Now we know that the real world out of universe reason is that they were using that notoriously false, phony shyster Jamaki Highwater as their Indian consultant. And I'm sure he just cobbled together nonsense that he was able to quickly research and threw up on the screen.
mm,
And there you go.
right.
But I did read recently, in prep for this episode, what I feel like is a really great in-universe reason to explain away some of the inconsistencies with the Chakotay character. And this is the first time that I'd ever read that, and it just so happens that we're talking about this episode, so I wanted to share it with you,
Okay.
and maybe you can use this to frame how you look at Chakotay going forward. It'll be
Right.
hard for me because I've already seen this show a bajillion times,
Right.
but maybe it'll help you out. So the reason is, as you know from the various Trek episodes that dealt with like the Maquis and the establishment of the Maquis people, the Native Americans emigrated from Earth and went to these various planets to reestablish their culture.
Right.
And in doing so, they kind of, while they still maintained a Native American esque heritage, a lot of the groups like Crow, Iroquois, Cheyenne, Cherokee, those particular Indian nationalities all blended together when they
Hmm.
moved to these other planets. And instead of calling themselves Cherokee or Huron or whatever it was. They
Right.
just said that they are the new natives of these new planets they were on. So they
Right.
all just kind of it became like a mixing of these cultures.
Ah, okay.
Aztec descendants, Incan descendants, Mayans, all of these groups that decided to join in this mass exodus from Earth to reestablish their particular viewpoints of culture on
Right.
these other planets, then blended together. So then what you got were several generations after that of children who were raised who had a little bit of this one, a little bit of that one, a little bit, and they were taught all of them. So what
Right.
we're seeing is Chakotay is the product of that. He is a child who was raised learning about the multiple rituals and stuff from all of them, but instead of it being like this is a ritual from this culture, this is a ritual from that one, it's these are our rituals, these are
Gotcha.
our whatevers. So
So
that's why
he didn't grow up on Earth. He grew up on one
no,
of the other planets.
yes, he is a child from one of the settler planets.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So I really like that when I read that. I felt like it made a lot of sense, and it
Yeah.
does
It
take a lot of the burden off of Chakotay needing to be this true blue
it's a
representation of of a hardcore Native American.
yeah, it's a
Um,
good retroactive, explanation
yeah,
for why he is the way he is, as opposed to
yeah,
turns out some dude was faking it.
yeah, yeah. So I really like that, and I was eager to share that with you because I felt like, man, that just it even for me, like as much as I gave Chakotay a lot of flack when I was watching the show originally,
Hmm.
even now, all these years later, it really helped me to kind of like soothe my Chakotay hate. Uh, because there are so many like once you became aware of the the lies that Highwater was telling them and they were using in the show, it really does make you like kind of hate the character a little bit. And then there's even a point where they become aware of the fact that Highwater was a fraud, and then they try to distance themselves from making Indian references with Chakotay anymore. And
Right.
it's like that's wrong because we're season 4, season 5. We've already established you can't go away from it now,
Right.
you know. But
Yeah.
I wish that somebody had thought about that then and given him a chance to do some ex post facto there and explain this. But yeah, that I thought that was a really great one, a great way to think about Chakotay, and it makes this episode, for me anyway, easier to watch. But still, I just want to know what were those rocks made out of? How did
Yeah.
they get them to stick to the cloth like that? She picked that thing up,
Hey, spirit rocks,
waved
bro.
it around.
Spirit
Right.
rocks, bro.
You got to do 3 circles counterclockwise around the face, rub it, and then you stick it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, she was doing the like Belana Torres. She had been taught how to do this. I mean, other than her one little faux pas there at the end of putting the rock in the wrong place, she was doing something when we first have the camera
And,
on her.
and can we
She
just talk about that for a moment? At some point in their past history, Chakotay taught her this thing, which apparently is pretty complex, pretty detailed. Not something I feel like you would just kind of share, right? You're not just gonna, hey, everybody gather around. I'm gonna teach you how to work the medicine wheel, right? You would. This is somebody that you would trust to do this. And she even says he told me that if anything serious ever happened to him, I should do this. So it sounds to me like this is something that you would do with um, like a best friend, maybe a significant other, intimate partner, that kind of level.
right.
So what happened with Chakotay and Balana back in their Maquis days? You know, we know that he was with Seska at some point, but
Mhm.
maybe before Seska, maybe a little after Seska. Was there a Balana Chakotay
Oh
something?
gosh, please
You know?
no. No.
Hey, I'm just asking. I'm asking the questions that have only been around for 30 years. I'm
Yeah.
sure. You know, just
Asking questions. There's only someone every time asking questions.
I'm just saying it just doesn't track that she would be so knowledgeable and into doing this for him without there being something. Maybe it's an unrequited love thing. Maybe she like,
Hey,
you know,
he
loved
was
him
a
from afar.
beloved leader of the Maquis faction she was a part of. So the fact that she secretly loved him was only ever a minor detail.
Sure. We'll go with that because that's always been true of people in the past, that it was a benevolent uh love triangle or whatever the hell. Yeah, that's a thing.
Exactly. There you go. You got it.
So besides Chakotay just basically laying there, lazy ass, the whole episode,
That's yes,
um,
yes. Keep
you
going.
know,
Yes,
besides that, um, Tuvok gets to shine in this
yes.
episode, playing our unwitting or maybe witting, bad guy, our villain
I
in this
can't
episode.
believe that a Vulcan would be susceptible to mind possession. I can't believe it. Yeah.
Yeah, they don't really explain that very well, especially considering we're coming hot off of um, Next Gen and before this the original series, where Vulcans were. We know that they have psychic abilities themselves, but they were particularly adept at fending off those kinds of things.
Hmm.
Other races couldn't influence them the way that they could maybe do humans or other people. So the fact that he was um, utilized in this way, it just does seem to be kind of antithetical to what we knew of Vulcans beforehand. But
Right.
maybe, these aliens in there, they're just more powerful. But it would also explain why it found such an easy host in Tuvok and never jumped to anyone else, because he was so in tune, or his own psychic abilities made their control over him so much more precise than it ever would have been anyone else.
Interesting. I mean, it certainly seems to be the case that he was like they attacked Chakotay. He's out. Tuvok was able to endure it, and therefore he's the only vessel worth taking over.
Yeah,
Um,
that could be it. Yeah,
yeah.
that's right. Because he said there was an energy. That maybe that's the part that was true. He didn't make that up. They were hit by some kind of random energy, whatever, and Chakotay immediately lost consciousness,
Right.
whereas Tuvok didn't, and so it was
Right.
able to inhabit him. Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
good point. I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
But I love that we also had Tuvok kind of leading the investigation, but
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
him, so it's
Uh,
like, is this thing like cohabitating in him, or is it like sometimes it's switched on and sometimes it's switched off, or what? They don't really say, but it almost seems like he's fully integrated into Tuvok because he doesn't have any emotional outbursts, not until the end when he's been discovered, you know. So he's able to maintain that Vulcan stoic veneer for the majority of the episode.
yeah. Okay. This reminded me as the way you were talking. I think it's Aldrich Ames, the former CIA officer who was chief of Soviet counterintelligence, who was himself actually selling secrets to the Soviets. Like that's who Tuvok is basically in this.
That's like that
He's
movie No Way Out with Kevin Costner,
yeah. I don't think I've seen that one, but
early '90s movie. He works in the Pentagon. He's a CIA agent too, but he's also a double agent. And it turns out that they begin an investigation
uh
into
huh.
who is spying in the
Yes.
Pentagon, and he's put in charge of the investigation, and he's
Yes.
he's investigating himself. And so now
Yes.
he's trying to figure out a way to escape, and that's why it's called No Way Out, because he's in the Pentagon. And they're already in lockdown, and because they know that the spy is there, so
Right.
no one can leave. And so he's trying to figure out a way to both implicate someone else and escape before they all close in on him.
Right.
It's a very
Yeah.
weird movie to watch because on the one hand, you find yourself like rooting for him, and then you realize, oh crap, he's the bad guy. Can't root for him. You're the
Right.
bad guy. But it was Kevin Costner in his heyday, so he was
So
pretty.
Kevin Costner is the traitor character.
Yes, he is. He is the
Interesting.
traitor. Yes.
Okay, I'll have to look that one up.
Yeah.
But yeah. As soon as we start talking about that, I was like, yeah, the idea of the guy, trying to find himself is the who watches the Watchmen problem.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I'd say I like this episode. I'm here on Wikipedia and I see that there's some group that says this is like the worst episode of season one. And I'm like, no, this one was interesting.
It's definitely not the worst episode of season one.
Not at all.
Yeah, this one it had a lot of potential. It's one of those like I think it's a solid episode as well.
Yeah.
Um I would have loved to see a little bit more body switching.
Yeah.
But other than, I mean, that's probably my only real complaint about the episode.
By the time
Um,
by the time Chakotay is possessing people, it would have been kind of fun to have him possess someone to the point where like he has to confront Tuvok almost. But I don't know, maybe that would have been a little too on the nose
Well,
for the
we kind of get that when Chakotay takes over Janeway and backhands Tuvok, and then
yeah,
Tuvok.
but I'm
That's what
talking about
leads
like
to
a true.
Tuvok's.
I'm talking about like a true like the scene in Deep Space Nine where Kira is possessed by the prophets and
Jake
Jake.
is possessed by the Power Wraiths.
Yeah, like something a
Well,
little more
that
like
that
that.
would have been a little too, hey, we just did that over there on Space
Well,
Station.
I mean, if this is season 1 of Voyager, would that have yet occurred on Deep Space Nine? I feel like that's maybe next season on Deep Space Nine.
Probably not yet, because this is season 1 of Voyager, so this would have been what, season 4 or 5
Well, I think they're
of
finishing up season
DS9.
3 of Deep Space Nine right now.
Yeah.
So let's real quickly. This is May 1995. So season 2 of the season. It would have been season. No. Yeah, the end of season 3. I was right. Yeah. So season 3 of Deep Space Nine ended on June 17th. So they were matching up the first season and third season of Deep Space Nine. But yeah, anyway, I like the idea of as you were saying earlier, like Janeway, like she gives up partial command of the ship, so she's like spreading out her command codes. They try and give the Doctor command, but he gets knocked out. Someone deactivates him. Tuvok, obviously.
Tuvok, yeah, Tuvok does it.
They put like 8 layers of encryption over his program.
Which honestly should have been the immediate tell that it was Tuvok. I mean, honestly, yeah, it should have been a dead giveaway that this person has so completely locked up the medical program, and they had to have done it in a relatively short amount of time because y'all were just there, just giving him the command codes. You just did this.
Yeah.
And for there to be that quick
who
of a
would
turnaround,
know that he's one of the people you just did that? Like, who else was in the room when that happened? Yeah,
right?
Tuvok was there.
You didn't go around. You didn't put a general announcement out to the ship. Hey, we're giving the computer partial control. That was an in-house senior officers meeting.
Right.
And then the guy turns around and says 8 layers of encryption. So yeah, who was in the room that would have known how to do that when you told everybody that you were going to do that? You had Tuvok, the Doctor, obviously, Tom Paris, and I think B'Elanna was there.
I was going to say I think that was B'Elanna as well.
That's it. So Tom is not your 8 decryption code deep guy.
No, he's not. Tom. That is not Tom. Nope.
Right. So that only leaves B'Elanna and Tuvok had access. He was right there. He was in sickbay. Right. And then him and Kes immediately following are discovered, having been attacked.
Right.
So it had to be him.
Yeah.
This is one of those things where it's just like, you want me to believe these people are really, really smart in the top of their game, and yet at the same time, they're so clueless to the things that are literally right in front of them.
Well, to be fair, they thought that this entity was going around possessing different people. So they weren't necessarily... They should have said, Tuvok, you must have been possessed and did this. But I think there's that scene where, he's in Janeway's quarters and she's questioning him.
Yeah, in the ready room, and she's saying that. She's like, it looks like that's when they were looking at Kes's injuries.
Right.
And he says, yeah, it's possible that I was inhabited by the alien at the time.
Right.
When this happened. So he acknowledges that it's, and they kind of are aware. But again, it's just like too many other things have happened that they never attribute to Tuvok. And it's like,
well, I guess what I'm getting at is that the twist that Chakotay and an actual alien entity are both acting, what they think is one person doing things is actually 2 entities doing things. Mm-hmm. That's why I think it's a fun twist because on this Wikipedia thing, I guess the Digital Fix felt this episode. Well, they do make the correct critique that the mysterious nebula trope has been done 3 times already this season. And it's like, okay, guys, you can't do any more the mysterious nebulas. You got to figure out something else that you discover. But then they say it's like the worst. Oh, not the worst episode of the entire. Oh, but the weakest episode in season 1. Yeah, I disagree with that. This is classic. there's a malevolent entity on board. We don't know what it
Hmm.
is. We need to figure out how to stop it. Um, and it has a fun little twist of, of all the characters, Tuvok is the one you'd think can't, is the least likely to endure some sort of possession or to be compromised. So he's the moral one, as a Vulcan. But you have an idea that maybe Chakotay is doing something, that he's still alive because of the whole spirit wheel thing, and but you're not clear what. And the reason I was laughing earlier is because you mentioned that this is kind of a Chakotay Tuvok episode, but Chakotay, the actor who plays Chakotay, like, doesn't do a damn thing.
He
What's his name?
easiest paycheck of his career.
Exactly.
He laid in the bed with the shirt off
Yeah. And his
and got
character
to
did a
sleep.
bunch of stuff while he was unconscious. He was a spirit running around.
I fully believe he slept. That's my head canon, is that the actor was like, well, see you later.
Might as well
And
take a nap.
he got a blanket, he got comfortable, and he just laid
Don't
there
don't
the
get too
whole time
comfy
they
there.
shot. The whole shoot, he laid in that bed. I know I would have, like, wait, I'm unconscious almost the whole episode, and we're filming for 16 hours today. Yeah, wake me up
Yeah.
later. I'm gonna get some shut eye on this one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Robert Belcher.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just, whatever, Chicote, you're just lazy. Um I I don't really have any, like, other complaint. A small one, a small complaint. And this is something that they do this a lot in Trek. When they give episodes names like this, at some
Uh-huh.
point there should be somebody who makes a reference to it and explains what the thing is, right? Don't give me an episode titled something like this and not tell me what that word is, or at least give me somebody that says it so I know how it's pronounced, or to look it up. Like, something. Give me something more. They do this a
Okay.
lot in Trek. This is an episode that's a great example. Sub Rosa is another one that's a great example. They just, yeah, like, give me more. Stop being enigmatic and tell me what the thing means. But that's my only other critique
So
of
the
the episode.
word cathesics, you're saying it's not pronounced that way, but you
It's
want to know
not.
what that means? Should we Google it real fast?
I already did. It is the process of investing mental, emotional, or psychic energy into a person,
Ah,
object, or idea. Makes
yes.
sense. We're dealing with psionic energies bouncing around from person to person and doing things. So that's basically what this episode is. So it's a spot on. It's appropriate. I just wish that they had taken the time to explain it. That's all.
And apparently it's pronounced cathexes. So I don't know if I said it right or not. I don't care anymore. Figure I
Yeah,
could say that.
still
That's
gonna say
the
that's
proper
right.
pronunciation. So
Well, which is another reason why having a person say it in the episode
would
would
have been
have
nice.
helped.
Yeah.
And as a kid watching this show and growing up, what a great way to expand your vocabulary. Is it's so hard for you to give me a little bit of an education as well, you know?
Yeah. We have a moment of cathesics on our hands. So yeah.
So in our little chat here, Miles O'Brien Davis, he says, I've asked cast members at conventions who their favorite fellow castmate was to work with, and to a man, and they all say Robert Beltran. He apparently has a lot of fun between takes. Yeah, I would believe that. I've seen some of these conventions online, and he does seem to get the rest of the crew laughing pretty quickly when they're up there on the dais. He's no Jonathan Frakes, who apparently is an all-out riot when he's on these things. But for the Voyager cast, he definitely seems to keep them in good spirits, which is good, because I remember hearing when the show was still in production that he didn't really enjoy a lot of things,
Right.
and there were a lot of times where he was looking to get out of his contract, but for some reason they weren't willing to let him go, and he ended up being paid quite a lot of money to stay around. In fact, he's even said a few times that he just kind of would demand a raise just to see if they'd give it to him to stay around, and a lot of times they would. They did
Yeah.
not want to lose his character, so they did. They paid him. So,
Right.
I mean, do what you gotta, I guess, and it worked. He got his money and he stayed for all 7 seasons. So, there you go. Um, I feel like there's a lot of characters who like, when they show that kind of potential, like it takes a little while,
Hmm.
but Chakotay is one. I feel like he is probably, barring the Indian part, he's probably one of the more complete characters presented in a pilot and through the first season of a show than any other character. Like even Janeway doesn't get the same kind of development I feel like that Chakotay gets. We know a lot about Chakotay coming into the first season,
Right.
and I don't feel like we really get that from Janeway until more towards the second and third seasons.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, we know a lot about him: his troubled past, the Maquis, the Indian
Well,
culture, the there's just a lot. And then of course Robert Beltran does a really great job of giving the character a lot of personality. So
right.
he feels um, very relatable and
Gotcha.
identifiable. Like Janeway, it almost feels like sometimes she's still trying to like, sort herself out a little bit, Yes, she's in command. Yes, we know that, she's the captain and everything like this, but it's like, what kind of captain is she? We haven't quite put our finger on it yet,
Right.
you know? So
Well, the Paris starts off with maybe the best outside of Chakotay because he's kind of like the main character of the first, 2 episodes in a sense.
mhm,
He's our audience, the character we follow to get an insight into the world
mhm.
in the first episodes or first episode, however you want to say it.
He brings us to Voyager.
Right,
It's through Tom Paris that we see Voyager for the first time.
right. But this does bring up the fact that the opening scene of this whole episode is of Captain Janeway. Apparently, the thing that she enjoys doing in the holodeck is playing governess in.
Yeah, I mean, I always thought that was a weird take for her.
Yeah,
She
I
her
have to say,
her break to get away from it all is to go and teach 19th century Victorian mathematics to a bunch of bratty kids.
yeah.
Really?
According to what I'm seeing here, apparently this is not going to be the last time we see her doing the Lucy Davenport character in the holodeck. I'm curious to see how that goes. I was just curious, like you are the captain of a starship, which is a very demanding job. You're a unmarried. Well, she has a is it a husband,
Fiance.
a
She has a
fiance back
fiance. They're
home,
engaged.
right?
Yes.
In the pilot episode, we saw him briefly, but she's not married. She doesn't have her own kids, and so this opening scene is of her meeting with both the like head of the household woman, who's like, "It's my way or the highway." And instead of Janeway being like, "Hey, like I totally get it. You're in charge. I'm not trying to not trying to mess up your whole thing here." She's like, "I do what the master says, or whatever. The Lord
Yeah,
hired
the
me
Lord of the
directly."
Manor, he's the one who hired me. I take his orders, not yours. I
Yeah,
work
I'm
for
like,
him, not you. It's a
"Why are you being
weird
so
confrontational, like,
confrontational?"
yeah, like why are yeah, this is one of those things that like it kind of brings me to like the problem I have with the holodeck.
Mhm,
Um I get why they would want to give the ships these things, these
mhm.
crews on these long missions. It's a very demanding job. Having a place where you can unwind, relax, and have a true change of scenery,
Right,
and it's an immersive world for you, like we see on the Enterprise. Picard goes horseback riding,
right.
uh, Geordi creates a whole beach, landscape and whatever, like
Among other things.
it's yeah, but I'm just saying, like they have a whole Sherlock Holmes thing and all that stuff, and so it makes sense that you would use it that way. But I just feel like for Janeway, it was just such a humdrum, weird
Well,
focal point for her. Like,
let's. I mean, for me, it's a question of like, as you just point out, like Picard is doing something relaxing to enjoy himself. It's not a task-oriented thing he's doing there.
yeah,
The most task-oriented thing he ever does is like help Data learn Shakespeare, or
yeah, and
um,
it's not dependent on other characters what he's doing. He's like
right,
again, he's riding a horse in one. He's helping Data do a Shakespearean performance. There's not other characters that they have to interact with. Janeway's program, she is assuming a role. She would
Yes.
have to in order to like, let's just say that it's a story, right? Story driven. You have to participate in the plot. She would have to engage these children in lessons in order for the story to progress.
Right.
That seems like a weird way to spend your time.
Well, I mean, and then to be clear, if we're gonna say that part of what happens in the holodeck is to get it on with the characters, maybe her thing is that she's gonna end up with the Lord. She wants to bang the
Well,
Lord somehow.
I mean,
You
no,
know,
I
he
mean,
comes
obviously
in, he's
that's
like,
that's a potential that we see from other programs, but it doesn't
right.
necessarily mean it has to be.
Oh,
Like,
I
it,
know.
it almost
I'm
feels
being
like
facetious.
their weird take on a Jane Austen type.
Well, that's what I'm getting at. Is like
Yeah, yeah,
he comes in and he's like, I'm a hard woman. I'm a hard man to please.
yeah. That's what he said.
Yeah. It's like, oh, well, don't worry, my lord. You know, your pleasure is the only thing I'm worried about. Yeah.
Basically, it's a weird Jane Austen meets Harlequin novel
Right.
presentation.
Well,
They didn't do it very well. I'm not
well,
going to blame Janeway for the per se, and I'm certainly not
fair
going to
enough.
blame Kate Mulgrew.
Oh no,
I
she's
think this
great.
is
She's a
I
great
think this is just
actress
one of
in
those.
that scene in particular. Yeah.
Yeah, they were trying to. I think they were just trying to present Janeway in a certain light, and
Yeah.
they
Here's
it didn't hit. It
the
didn't
cold
land well.
open. Here's a strange
Yeah.
scenario she's in, and I guess the whole thing that was weird for me is the idea that they would have cast these people and set up a set and got costumes out for her to then get a thing. You know, she gets a call out, "Hey, Captain, we need you to come to the bridge." Like, I'm glad we're going to revisit these scenes in the future. They don't just have this throwaway scene because, you know, like they spent time and money. Like,
So yeah,
whoa,
okay. So that's great. It's important to note that in the '90s, when they were filming a lot of these shows, they would film them in segments.
right,
So they would, like, if they're doing the bridge scene, right? They would map out for the week all the episodes they were going to do, what they were about, and
right,
then how many episodes needed bridge scenes, and they would count it out, and then it'd be like, okay, now you're on the bridge, and this is for episode 3,
gosh.
and you're gonna do all the dialogue that we need for episode 3 on the bridge.
Can you
Okay,
imagine
now
trying to
that's
remember all the
exactly.
lines?
I
Oh
don't
my
know how they
wow.
did that, but that's why they had filming for so long, and that's why it took what it took. You know, they were talking about, sometimes, 18-hour days of filming, but that's why, because then you would finish that scene. That's great for that episode. Now reset. We're on the bridge. Episode 4.
Right.
Go. And you got to do it. And then, okay, now we're done. We've done all our bridge scenes for the week. We're
So
moving on to the next thing.
according to what you're saying, then they didn't take a week to film all of the scenes for episode 5, and then next week is all of episode 6. They
No.
film all of the bridge scenes this week for like 3 episodes, and then
Yes.
everything outside the bridge on next. Okay,
Yes.
that would be
that way.
brutal.
Yes. That way they got maximum usage for their props, for their actors,
for the film crew on
for
that
film
set.
crews, all of it, because those things cost money. And like
Yeah.
you said, if you got actors who are coming in to do these one-off hologram bits,
Right.
that becomes very expensive when you have to do this week in and week out. So it's like,
Right.
okay, how many holodeck episodes are we going to do this week? How many times we need to go into the holodeck? Okay, we're going to film all of those on Monday. So bring in all of your extras, dress at the set, do what you got to do. Holodeck. Today is holodeck day.
Right.
Okay, now we're done. You're paid. You're off our set. Now we're moving on to the next thing.
What's so
When you
crazy about that, which I guess is just a testament to the quality of these actors to be able to do it, is like, you got to know how to act, how to emotionally respond
Yeah.
in the moment. So you have to like know where your character mentally is in the scene.
Mhm.
That's just nuts. Yeah, I
And
can't
that's
imagine.
and in our chat they bring up a great point. That's why it's not surprising unless the cast didn't even know what the shows were about. That is very true. It's funny, but
Yeah.
it's true. Like, a lot of them, when you go to these conventions, they talk about it. They say that, half the time they weren't sure, what the thing was about, and so that was one of their biggest gripes, is because the
Which
fans would come.
nebula are we talking about this week?
Well, yeah. Well, and that was their gripe, was that the fans would come up and they would ask them about specific episodes, and they wouldn't really know what they were talking about, because for them,
That
That
was
episode, that was a piece of an episode that was mixed in with a bunch of other pieces that they filmed
whew,
that particular day. There's no way for them to remember. And, a lot of them don't know the episodes until they go back and watch it themselves. And a lot of
yeah,
times that's when they're like, oh, that's this thing. And that's, whatever.
right.
Yeah.
That's got to be
Um,
brutal. Oh
yeah.
man, I had no
Mar-
idea it was that complicated.
yeah. Marina Sirtis tells this story about LeVar Burton, she said he was great at learning just his lines.
Right,
He knew his stuff. And so he would come in, deliver his bit, and then go because they had to, be ready for the next thing or whatever. And it was just like there was, not a whole lot of time.
right,
And it also explains why these guys, like when you have to do the bridge scenes, they would be on set for hours and they're cutting up and they're doing jokes and they're whatever else because they've been on this set for 18 hours doing different stuff. Okay, in
right.
this part you're crying and you just got thrown across to wherever. Okay, now reset. Now in this episode, you're not here. You're in the ready room and you're here. Like all of that all the time. Gotta be nerve-wracking.
Oh
Gotta
man,
be nerve-wracking.
I'd be yeah. I totally
Yeah.
agree. Yeah, I'd be crazy.
Yeah, we have this image in our heads as fans and as watchers that they just filmed all the way through for one episode, then next week come back, film all the way through for the next episode next week, like and they just kind of live this very linear episode production experience.
Right.
No, it was not that at all because you can't film that way because money. Like think about makeup and retouches and all of that stuff. So it's just like no, you had to get as much out of that as you could, and that's what they were doing. So yeah, you got to do a fight scene. You're gonna knock them all out here today, right now. And God forbid you get hurt. I mean, we've heard of this even on movies. Like the person gets hurt,
Oh yeah,
and now they've got to take 6 weeks off
and
because they
come
got to
back and
recover from the
reshoot
injury,
and
and then they got to do the reshoots and whatever else because things have changed and whatever. Yeah, it sucks, but that's why.
yeah.
So yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So overall, I would say yes. We both agree this is a very solid episode, not
Yeah,
bad whatsoever. We get a little bit from pretty much everybody in this episode. We see
yeah,
even Neelix gets a little, screen time here. So yeah, we get to see from everybody
yeah.
here.
He has his scene is with the doctor, which, by the way, one thing to say. Last episode, the doctor got a chance to go be in the Beowulf story, so it was kind of about him. So I was surprised and a little pleased that the idea was, hey, we trust you now to like help run the ship. Like that plot line is moving forward already.
Mhm.
But anyway, yeah, his Neelix talking with the doctor. Well, I know it was funny, but I can't. I watched it last week. It's been a while. What was that interaction they had? Do you remember Neelix and the doctor?
Well, in this one, it was very minimal. It was towards the end because Neelix is in sick bay
Right.
and he's inhabited by the Chakotay spirit, and he rearranges the rocks, the magnetic yet not magnetic rocks, and
Well, he does
he's
do
able
that.
to tell them the path
He does that
out.
at the end, but he has some sort of interaction with the doctor. If I remember correctly, it was kind of funny. Like,
Well, yeah, because Kess had been injured, and so
right,
he was trying to. The doctor was trying to figure out, assess her injuries, and he was like, "I could never hurt Kess," and he's like, "Well, you might not have known that you've done it because you might have been inhabited by the alien that did this."
right,
And he's like, "There's no alien could have made me hurt her and all this kind of stuff." He's so just, ugh,
right,
yeah. So, and that's also why he's in sick bay and able to redirect the rocks because
right,
he was hovering over Kess, who was still unconscious, and
right.
does the thing. Yeah. So.
Oh my
All right, I
gosh.
think that's going to really do it for us on this episode. Again, if you are interested at all in watching it, you can go to Paramount Plus to do so, where you will find it and all the rest of the Trek stuff, except for Prodigy still. So,
Yeah.
whatever.
Cool.
But yeah, other than that, you can also find us and follow us anywhere that you do your social medias and listen to podcasts. The majority of our stuff is pretty much on YouTube now. Most of our new stuff is YouTube. Trying
Right.
to get everything converted to do podcasts is just incredible. Strictly a podcast like released on Amazon and Spotify and everything else. It's kind of a labor of love. I'm trying to get all that caught up still, and it's
Right.
like it's just weird. It'll release like one episode, and then I won't see an update for like 2 weeks, and then it'll do another one. So
Right.
I'm giving up on trying to like force them to do whatever. I just am like, here, it's here. So um but yeah, feel free to come back, leave us messages. We'll answer what we can when we can. Have any questions, comments, or concerns, of course. But as always, be polite because we won't answer you if you're not polite. All right. But I think it's going to do it for us on this particular episode of the Fire Caves. We will be back next week. I don't think that we have anything planned to not be back next week. So be sure to
Yeah,
come
last
back.
week was weather. There was thunder in the
Yeah,
area.
we had some terrible, terrible weather, and hopefully that will not be a problem for us this week
Yeah.
or this coming week. But until then, take care of yourselves.
Thanks, guys.